5 famous historical beheading victims who were brave to the end. European history is littered with stories of executions for various reasons, and beheading was a rather prominent means of putting the condemned to death. It's a real wonder that anyone survived, considering the frequency of public executions in the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. There are many tales of those who quite understandably panicked, begged, struggled, or fought as they were dragged step by step to the executioner's scaffold. But what about those who met their fate well? Listen on to discover 5 people who met their makers in one of the cruelest fashions imaginable, but managed to stay brave and dignified to the end. Welcome to the Amagi, and today we're counting down 5 famous historical beheading victims who were brave to the end. Before we begin, we publish new content every week, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 5. Louis XVI. Louis XVI was executed in 1792 as a result of the French Revolution and the abolition of the monarchy in France. His wife, Marie Antoinette, was also famously beheaded as a result. The execution of Louis is not as notorious as the beheading of young Marie Antoinette, but he was as brave as possible in the face of what must have been terrifying events. According to reports, Louis took his punishment courageously. The last thing he said to his friend Malesherbes was that he would need to control his tears in front of the sea of onlookers. Reports from the time indicate that Louis exonerated those who had condemned him to death and hoped that his execution would not be a stain on the history of his country. By all accounts, Louis appeared calm and resigned to his grisly fate. After his head was cut off by the guillotine, onlookers were said to have dipped their handkerchiefs in the king's blood. Number 4. Charles I of England. During an 11-year period between 1649 and 1660, the UK existed as a republic state rather than the traditional monarchy. The monarchy was abolished at the end of the English Civil War, and the sentence for the reigning monarch Charles I was death. The crime was treason. During this period, the leader of the republic was Oliver Cromwell. On the day of his execution in 1649, Charles asked for an extra shirt to wear so he would not be cold and therefore shiver. After making his way to the executioner's block, Charles made his final speech. He then said a final prayer and signaled his executioner to make the fatal blow. According to reports, the executioner took only 1 stroke to execute him. This was unlikely during the time, with some beheadings taking multiple strokes. Charles' son, Charles II, ascended to the throne in 1660 when the monarchy was re-established. Charles II ordered many beheadings upon restoration, including the deceased Cromwell's body, which was posthumously decapitated. Number 3. Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary, Queen of Scots, was the Queen of Scotland between 1542 and 1567, before she fled Scotland after a scandal involving the murder of her husband. It is believed that Mary was implicated in the murder. After spending years of custody in England, her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, found Mary guilty of plotting to murder her so that she could ascend to the throne of England. The plan was backed by Catholics as they wanted to remove the Protestant Queen Elizabeth from power. Mary was caught by an English spy who deciphered one of her letters, thus proving her guilt. Mary was executed in 1587. According to reports, Mary was courteous while on the executioner's scaffold and forgave her executioners, who were kneeling and asking for forgiveness. After disrobing just her outer garments, Mary leaned down onto the executioner's block, and her final words are recorded as being, "Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." It was said that the first stroke of the executioner's axe did not strike cleanly, and he was forced to swing again to deliver the decisive blow. It was also noted when he held up her head afterward, it fell to the ground, and the executioner was left holding a wig. Number 2. Marie Antoinette. After the overthrow of the monarchy and the execution of her husband Louis XVI in 1792, Marie Antoinette was found guilty of high treason and sentenced to death in 1793. Among the crimes she was accused of were instigating mass orgies and incest with her own son, a crime she vehemently denied. She was relatively young at the time of her death, being only 37 years old. According to reports, Marie Antoinette wore a white dress and endured an hour-long journey on a cart as she was transported to the Place de la Révolution. The crowd is said to have jeered her on this journey. By all accounts, Marie Antoinette maintained her composure and accepted her cruel fate. Her last words are recorded as being an apology for stepping on her executioner's toes accidentally, translated as, "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." She was guillotined shortly after. She died having never confessed her crimes and wrote in a letter to her sister that her conscience was clear. Number 1. Anne Boleyn. Perhaps the most famous of Henry VIII's 6 wives, Anne Boleyn was sentenced to death in 1536. The charges against her were given as adultery, treason, and incest. However, it is well known that the king had grown tired of her and her inability to bear him a son. After her trial, her sentence was set as a beheading, rather than the traditional burning at the stake for women. Henry VIII arranged to have an expert swordsman come from France. Prior to her execution, she had shown joy in death and was reported to have sworn on multiple occasions that she had never been unfaithful to the king. Upon arriving at the scaffold, Anne Boleyn made a short speech, which was said to have moved the crowd in attendance. She asked them all to pray for her and largely accepted her fate. Her last words prior to the fatal blow are noted as being, "Jesus, receive my soul. O Lord God, have pity on my soul." The expert swordsman beheaded the former queen with a single blow. Do you agree with our picks? Be sure to check out these other great lists from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.